about to join Don Neuen, co-host of Cowboy Logic Radio, and Denise Simon, host of the Denise Simon Experience, for a weekly situation report, or SITREP. 18 hours a day, Denise Simon lives her life as an Intel Analyst. 18 hours a day, Don Neuen lives his life in the world of rock and roll. 1 hour each day, Neuen receives a daily SITREP from Simon. Welcome to the Drive Time Situation Report. Fasten your seatbelt. You are now in Don Neuen's car, and he is calling in for his SITREP.
Hello.
What's up, Niecy? How you doing, girl?
Not bad, you?
I'm doing well. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas as well.
And a happy Easter that's coming up.
Yes, it is.
So, we got a lot to talk about, and I think we probably ought to get after it because, as I explained right before we started recording this conversation, it's really cold where I am, and I don't have much cell phone battery left. So I'm hoping I'm going to make it through this show just fine. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Drive Time Sit Rep. You've got on one end of this telephone conversation, Denise Simon, the stellar Denise Simon. And on the other end of it, you got your buddy Don Neuen. We're going to be talking about whatever Denise wants to talk about throughout the evening. But prior to that conversation taking place here, she's going to timestamp the show. And she's going to do that so that you guys know exactly when this conversation took place, because there might be some stuff in here that you guys can go back, 2, 3, 4 weeks from now and go, holy cow, Denise Simon mentioned this. So without any further ado, Denise, the time and date stamp.
It's 8:38 p.m. Eastern. On the 20th day of January in the year of our Lord, 2020, and the eve of the opening of the Senate impeachment trial process.
Isn't it that? Well done, Denise. And again, Merry Christmas to you. For those of you that are new to the show, Denise and I wish each other Merry Christmas every week on the Drive Time Sit Rep, because Barack Obama is not in the Oval Office anymore, and Hillary Clinton is not in the State Department, and John Kerry is not in the State Department, and therefore we don't have to run around hiding in the shadows wishing each other Merry Christmas. So we just do it every week, because for us, every week is Christmas week, right, Denise?
There's something to be said for that.
All right. Hey, by the way, Denise, a quick weather update for you here. It is colder than a well digger's ass here in lovely Atlanta. How about you down in Tampa?
It's rather chilly here. Let's see, right now it is 50. It's going down to 45 tonight, 36 tomorrow night. That's a little on the chilly side for us.
For you guys, it is.
Lightweights down here.
Hey, let's see. Where am I at right now? Just because I know the listeners are just dying to hear this. 29 degrees here in Atlanta, going to a low tonight of 22. It's almost as if we were in the North Pole, huh, Denise?
You can have it.
You don't miss it, huh?
No.
All right. Well, let's get after it, Niecy.
Well, let me start off here.
Can we talk about also what happened in Virginia today? Because I don't know what happened in Virginia today.
Nothing. It was peaceful. It was great. And there wasn't even a straw, a plastic straw, left on any of the grounds or any of the streets. It was perfectly peaceful, respectful, calm, the friendly the whole thing.
You know, I made a comment about that very point this weekend at the Rock the Red USA convention that, as you know, Donna and I and a bunch of our friends were at in Greenville, South Carolina. And the comment was this. There were two things that I really noticed that differentiated a conservative gathering to that of a liberal or progressive gathering. Number one is that there were a number of testimonials that were given by our esteemed speakers that attributed either their careers or where they're at in their lives to God, and in some cases, God and Jesus. The other, because you never see that obviously at a liberal or a progressive gathering. The other thing that was very clear that differentiates between a conservative gathering and a liberal gathering is that everybody picked up their own trash and threw it away. They left the room much looking like it did when they came in. And I think that holds true every single time, probably with the greatest display of it during the Glenn Beck rally in Washington, D.C. Don't you agree, Denise?
I do. I was there.
Yeah. Conservative people care about other people's property and other people's things, and they don't destroy them. They don't trash them, and they're responsible because conservative people are much more self-responsible and self-reliant than liberal pukes, and we clean up our mess. So I'm going to get off my high horse now and let you talk about whatever you want to talk about. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Cheryl Atkinson is running a poll on her website, and I just took a look at it. The question is, how closely will you follow Trump's impeachment trial? Fascinating results so far. 10.29% won't miss a minute of watching it. 17% not at all. 26% somewhat closely. 10% just tell me how it ends. And the largest percentage is 37% already know how it ends. So
yeah, I would have to agree with that.
25, 35, 45, 50, 51%, actually 61% don't really care.
What, I wish there would be a question asked. What percentage of the population thinks this is stupid as hell?
Well, I think that's pretty much what's being said there.
Exactly. In so many words.
The other sad thing happens to do with your AO, area of operation, is that Crystal Burger has just now filed for Chapter 11 reorganization the second time. Real upset about that one.
Crystal Burger, as you mean? Do you
Crystal
mean
Restaurants?
Crystal Restaurant?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Well, hey, given the fact that I didn't notice that the first time that it filed bankruptcy, it didn't affect the way I enjoyed my crystals, maybe I'll be okay.
Well, I miss them. That's one thing we don't have. I think we have, I don't know, maybe a handful in the whole state of Florida. The next piece of news.
So, hey, wait a minute. So we both agree that we like Crystal?
Mm-hmm. I like the Crystal Chicks the best.
Nah. I do a Crystal triple patty with cheese.
Well, you better
Without
go get a
the
whole
middle.
bunch of them to help them out now.
Problem is, I can't find a Crystal worker bee that understands what I mean. I've had them actually give me. Let me build out this burger for you real quick, Denise. Bottom bun, communion wafer thin piece of meat, piece of cheese, Next middle bun, another communion wafer thin piece of beef, piece of cheese. Another middle bun, and a third communion wafer thin piece of meat and cheese. And then the top bun.
Wait, you have mustard and 2 pickles.
Yeah, but I'm talking about the real main contents here. Now, that is a pant load of bread. All I want, Denise, is the bottom bun, 3 pieces of communion wafer thin beef, cheese in between them, and the top bun. So that when I bite into it, I'm eating more meat than I am bread. And it's like you get this complete meltdown from the crystal worker bee at the front counter. They don't understand what the hell you mean. So you end up with this sandwich that's like 5.5 inches tall with a nanoparticle of beef wedged in between all the bread. Fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I'm glad you like the chicks, and I'm glad that we like Crystal. Now, if you'll only go to a Culver's, that'll be a bucket list thing that I get to knock off my list.
All right. Good to know.
Come on, Niecy, go to Culver's. All right, let's get back to business.
The next big piece of news is the Trump legal team has gotten larger exponentially as of late tonight, because now we have Jim Jordan, John Ratcliffe, Mark Meadows, Debbie Lesko, Elise Stefanik, Lee Zeldin, and Doug Collins all are participating in the team.
Oh, man. Merry Christmas, Denise.
There you
Merry Christmas.
Now, Hold
on. Go back to that. How many Democrat heads exploded over that?
I have no idea. But I can tell you that, let's see, that adds 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, which happens to be the number of the team that is behind the 2 impeachment managers, Adam Schiff and Jerry Nadler.
Sounds fair to me.
Now, I would say that in this particular case, John Ratcliffe is probably the strongest.
I would agree with you on that.
Because he's a former prosecutor, so he has an interesting turn. When it comes to Alan Dershowitz, he has not signed off. He has not signed on the filing by the Trump legal team that was done yesterday. That doesn't mean he approves or disapproves. He only has a small role, and the small role is to talk about the constitutional introduction to the process in the Senate. That's the only thing he's going to be doing. Okay.
Correct.
Robert Ray, I think he was part of the Whitewater prosecution team. He is also on the Trump legal team, and he has a role. He will be speaking at the opening tomorrow at 1 p.m. By the way, it does open at 1 p.m. and it goes 12 hours, so it goes 1 p.m. to 1 a.m. 1 p.m. to 1 a.m.
Yeah, so some of these liberal pews are actually going to have to put in a 12-hour day. What do you think about that?
Well, it does blow their heads off, not because of the hour, not because of really the hours, but because of the hours where most people, sometime after, say, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night, are going to turn it off and go watch something else. So the meat of each day will not be watched by the American people. They'll go on to watch something else and then just go to bed.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think they did that?
Because Justice Roberts has to put in his time over at the court.
He's going to be worn out by the end of the day, isn't he?
I would say. Okay, so McConnell has come out with his plan for what is known as a speedy trial. So what he wants to do is pass impeachment trial rules, giving both the White House counsel and the House impeachment managers 24 hours over 2 days each to make their opening arguments. Now, this is according to the resolution. Now, that's going to be followed by 16 total hours of questions and answers. Then there'll be a 4-hour debate over critical vote and the critical vote over whether to consider witnesses or new information. So this resolution needs a majority to pass the Senate. And remember, the Republicans have 53 seats. So already Schumer is freaking out, and that's okay. He says he's calling this a national disgrace, and that he's hell-bent is his words, hell-bent on making it more difficult to get witnesses and documents, and intent on rushing the trial through the system. But I have a feeling that somewhere in McConnell's quiver of arrows, if they insist upon additional documents and witnesses, they will go to a motion to dismiss, because that means that the House has an incomplete articles of impeachment, because neither article of impeachment, meaning 2, has alleged a crime. There is no crime in those 2 articles.
Correct.
Now, impeachment is for conviction of treason, which is they've not alleged. Bribery, they haven't really alleged that. They sort of did, but then they kind of backed off on it based on
they did back
based on the 2 articles. And then we have other high crimes and misdemeanors. Well, they didn't allege a crime, whether it be a high one or a little one, meaning a misdemeanor. So I think now I started to read the Trump's legal team's filing from last night. It's 110 pages. Haven't read it all. They got involved in another document that's 130 pages that has got nothing to do with it. It came out of the Defense Intelligence Agency. But I think it's okay. I don't know that I totally agree with the spirit of it, but they didn't ask me, and they don't need my approval. So I'm hearing some snippets on where the Democrats are with this, and then the Democrat, all these other cockamamie lawyers that are out there that are offering their critique of the Republican/Trump White House legal team on this. And of course, I'm listening and watching and reading, and they're like, they never even defend the fact that Trump did or didn't do anything. They're really attacking the process. That's what they're saying. I haven't read it, so I can form my own conclusion. But we do know that the 2 articles are not alleging a crime. They are not alleging a crime. So we don't have treason. We don't have bribery. We don't have high crimes, and hence we don't have misdemeanors. So
here's the $1 million question that's so from Captain Obvious here. Why are we here?
Well,
why are we wasting time?
That is really the argument, apparently, that the Trump legal team is making. And so it is being coordinated with, obviously, McConnell, and because they haven't made any allegations that are criminal, that he has the option of what they're calling a kill switch. I don't particularly like that term, but I guess that's okay. That after the Democrats present their case, the Trump legal team presents their case, there's some question and answers, that he could And if things go sideways and things get real nasty, he can go for the kill switch and just say, okay, we are either going to, he's probably got a document that says we are doing a motion to, not dismiss, but, well, I guess it could be a motion to dismiss. We're not accepting this. We're going to send it back to the House. Go get your work done. Call us later. Or we're going to go for a motion for acquittal, or we will proceed. So there's a lot of moving parts to all of this. And I would argue that probably somewhere around late afternoon tomorrow and then early tomorrow evening, things could get real exciting in the Senate.
Let me ask you this, Denise. Clearly, you and I and all of our beloved listeners think this is a complete joke that this is taking place, and it's an embarrassment and it's a stain on the history of our great republic. But having said that, if we are to look for payback, what is the best thing that we could have happen that could be a payback to the Democrats?
Well, that's kind of what I want. I want that probably more than anything else.
Yeah, I do too. But I mean, this sucks that this is happening to our republic.
Yeah, of course. But the Democrats are essentially saying that because of these two articles that, Trump is a danger to, our democracy, which they keep calling it. And furthermore, that he has betrayed the public trust. And betraying the public trust just sticks with me because if you just look at the polls and that Congress has an approval rating of somewhere around 10 or 11%, 12%.
I wasn't aware it was double digits.
Okay. Well, for the sake of argument, let's say it's 10%. That tells us right there that that's a betrayal of public trust, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I'm going to hang on that probably in my gut for a very long time. Betrayal of public trust. Now, that approval rating or lack of approval rating of Congress was there long before Trump even entered the White House and the day of his inauguration. So, therein lies where I would like to have my payback. And I think if we're not going to cure, we're not going to have a moment where we're going to just bury the hatchet. We're all going to kind of come together and we're going to have some kind of unity again. That's probably never going to happen again in the United States. I don't see it. I think we have to admit some realities here. I don't see it. We are too far polarized to ever come together again as a nation. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would. I mean, here's the thing, and we've only got about 45 seconds until we have to go to break. You and I have been talking about this a long time. Many on the left and the left-wing movement has gotten to a point where it is unrecognizable as fellow American citizens. I mean, some of the behavior that is going on with both the politicians on the left as well as movements that are falling under the auspices of the left, I find them unrecognizable. You got 5 seconds. Do you agree?
Yeah, of course. I mean, that kind of goes without saying.
Yep. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to come back in a couple of minutes. You're listening to the great Denise Simon. My name is Don Neuen, and this is the Drive Time SITREP.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.
Welcome back to the Drive Time SITREP, ladies and gentlemen. My name's Don Neuen. You've got on the other end of this telephone conversation the stellar Denise Simon. I would encourage you guys that have not been to her website, please go to it, founderscode.com. That's where you can find all of her great work in written form. The beautiful thing about that, ladies and gentlemen, is you can share that, you can discuss it, you can regurgitate it with 100% confidence because it's all full of integrity and already vetted for you. Denise Simon does all the hard work. All you got to do is spread the word. So please go to founderscode.com, follow her great work. She puts an enormous amount of time into that website, founderscode.com. All right, Denise, let's pick it back up.
Well, I'm going to tell a little bit of a story here that's been kind of going on in my life for about the last week, and I generally don't ever get personal because people just don't care. But I will here. There is a app out there that I have that anybody across the United States can have, and it's called Nextdoor. And it's a pretty cool little app because it has to do with your immediate living area, whatever zip code that you put in. Well, the moderator of my particular neighborhood, if you will, which is really several neighborhoods for obvious reasons, they generally are. He put out a question and he said, I'm going to get the question wrong. I shouldn't because there's been so much conversation on it. But it was, do you think that there will be a fair trial in the Senate for the impeachment of President Donald J. Trump? And it was a poll. And interestingly enough, there's about 40 people that have responded. And the larger number was no, it won't be fair because of the Republicans won't allow it to be fair. But then I think it was 48% said yes. And then there were some comments. So the comments is where it becomes kind of a chat forum. And I can tell by the nature of the question that the moderator was kind of comparing Trump to Nixon, that we have a president that's a crook or crooked. And there were 5 or 6 people that had chimed in and were not rude, but rather terse and said, oh, okay. Well, should the Republicans give the same kind of rules that the Democrats did where the Republicans don't get to call any witnesses? So, it was those kinds of exchanges. And several other people were on the side of Trump, and I appreciated their comments, but they were very short in their responses. Some other people that were obviously anti-Trump, and by the way, all of this was rather respectful. I mean, nobody was attacking anybody. Several others were anti-Trump, and you can tell by their responses that they were, but they were also lacking an awful lot of information. So I'm sitting here and I'm looking at this and I'm reading some of these comments and I'm vacillating on whether I want to join in or not. And then I thought, well, you know what? It's here. I'm going to try and help some people out. Those at least that wanted to be in a conversation. A lot of people just don't even want to be in a conversation, which is, I would say, a very sad condition. So I start putting in some facts. And I was very nice about how I was doing it. And Mr. John, the moderator, he's like, well, I kind of need, you're putting these things in, but I kind of like some links. Well, this is already saying, well, I don't generally believe anything that I read on the internet. Well, then what do you want, dude?
Well, yeah, I mean, you kind of run out of sources. That's like going into a library and going, I don't believe anything I read in the library.
Well, yeah. And so this has gone on for 4 or 5 days. Pretty intense, I might add. And I keep getting these emails or these messages because my name is now mentioned because, you use your first name. And so I had to go back and see what somebody is saying, and they're asking me legitimate questions, but, and somebody's trying to tell me how the impeachment trial is working and, blah, 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 blah. They're trying to teach me something, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm not going to tell them that I do this stuff 18
Nice
hours a
try.
day. And I'm not going to tell them that
exactly.
I'm the one that reads all the testimonies, and, I do, I'm not going to tell them I do radio. I'm not going to go all that. I'm just going to say, look, I'm here to inject some facts that clearly, and some names and dates and things that clearly media is not telling you. You go do your own research, and I'm just going to give you some clues, which I did. I'm naming the Devon Archers and the John Kerrys and the Victoria Newlands, and I even gave him the name of the whistleblower. Go find here. Your whistleblower's name is Eric. Go find him. And his buddy is who? Well, Sean Misko. And the other buddy is Abigail Grace. And guess who hired them? Adam Schiff. And so
Have they? Let me ask you this: have they called you a racist yet?
No.
Oh,
That won't happen. That won't happen in my area.
I don't think I'd be so certain.
Well, I mean, there's 40 or 50 in there that haven't, so they haven't gone that way. So anyway, yesterday I get a very nice direct message from the moderator. And I was really quite stunned. And he thanked me for imparting the information that I had and being kind and trying to be helpful. And so forth and so on. So I said, look, I'm not going to change anybody's mind. It's clear by this poll that the minds are already made up, which is pretty much what Cheryl Atkinson's poll also says. Minds are made up. So whatever happens beginning at 1:00 tomorrow, whether it goes 1 week, 2 weeks, or 10 weeks, it's not going to change the voters' impressions out here at all. That's where we are. So I go back to the public trust. Minds are made up, and I don't think unless Trump and his advisors in the White House, not the legal advisors, but just political advisors, unless he comes out being something 5 times what Ronald Reagan ever was, I don't think he's necessarily going to gain any more votes than he did before. Do you?
You talking about strictly from the impeachment trial?
Yes.
I would say that you are probably right, unless they push this thing down the road so far that potentially witnesses are brought into the mix. Which
Okay, so
quite honestly, I don't want it to go that long.
Well, you asked the question earlier, should there be some kind of consequence? And I am an absolute yes on that one, because if there's not a consequence, then all of the deep staters, I really don't like using that term, but it's an easy one. Everybody knows what it is. All of the deep staters will continue to be deep staters, whether Trump is reelected or not. Because let's say, for the sake of argument, he's not reelected, and we get Elizabeth Warren, or we get Bernie Sanders, or we get Joe Biden. They are going to work to destroy the Senate. They are going to go full bore, because they've already told us so in all these campaign speeches and all these debates. So I would argue that if Trump loses, we will be exponentially worse than we ever thought we were under the Obama administration.
I agree. So how can there be consequences for this destruction to the republic?
We either have to go, I think it was last week or week before last, I read off 95 names that I would want as witnesses. We'd either have to go that far, which means this thing could stretch all through the summer, or we would have to hope that there would be some other kind of event that would call out all these people. And I don't see that ever happening. So the only chance we would have for a consequence to teach the 58% or the 52% that are anti-Trump a real lesson and a lesson to the deep staters. I don't see it ever happening. Do you?
That's why I mentioned the witnesses. Do I want to drag this thing out into the middle of the summer and potentially beyond? No, because we've got work that we need to be doing. Do I think it's going to be done if this is a speedy trial? I don't have that confidence either.
Well, I heard you just say we have work to be done. Let me say this. The work to be done will be completely minimized if there's not a consequence to deep staters. We have to address the deep staters before we can ever talk about sanctuary cities, immigration, infrastructure, all these other kinds of things. All that stuff is meaningless until we can deal with this. All
right, so in recapping that, am I correct in my assumption that if you could have a perfect scenario for this impeachment trial, it would be to have 90 plus witnesses called, hey, listen, I'm not against that in any, don't read me the wrong way, you and our listeners. I think that I agree with you. It's the only way to bury these people. But am I reading you correct that if you could have it your way, this trial would extend out to where we could actually bring all 92 on your list in to testify under oath?
Yeah, but yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And I know that sounds nuts, but I don't see any other solution to this. Because we still haven't addressed Hillary's emails. We still haven't addressed the Biden corruption. We haven't addressed, the Lanny Davises and the David Kendalls, and we haven't addressed the Podesta operations, and we haven't. There's just so much other disgustingness that is beneath the surface. Least of which, I would say, a lot of it is driven by Dianne Feinstein, the Kavanaugh.
Hey, listen, I agree. Now, let me ask you this. What do you think the reality and the real possibility is going to be that it's going to get that frickin' intense?
Starting tomorrow after 1:00?
No. What percentage of hope do you have that we're going to be calling tens of tens?
0.
Okay, that's a bummer to hear.
I don't think we will.
See, because when you threw out the possible option of having the Senate throw this back to the House and say, hey, you know what? You don't have anything here. Play with it and come back when you're really ready to play ball.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the worst thing that could happen.
Well, I don't know. I just don't know. I have fretted, and that's the word. I have fretted over this for weeks now. I've played scenarios in my head. And then little piece parts. What was it that Mike Pence said to Zelensky in Warsaw on August the 1st? That 3 weeks later, whenever it was, we released the money to Ukraine. What was it that, Biden, that Giuliani really has on all things Ukraine? I think I know what he has. And then we have Lev Parnas.
I happen to think it's real what Giuliani has.
I do too. And here's a fascinating thing, which I had to teach some of these people back over there at the Next Door event that I was having here in the last week, that the corruption, because they just said the United States certified that, Ukraine cleaned up the corruption. No, that's just not factually correct. What's factually correct is the Department of Defense certified that Ukraine's military division has taken substantial steps to address corruption. That has nothing to do with the rest of the country, which includes the Biden component. Okay?
Correct.
So
Correct.
Words matter. And when I try and explain that to people sitting over there in the Nextdoor app, their eyes glaze over. So they're not getting it. Now, am I going to be able to get them to get it and understand it? No. I'm just going to put it out there. You guys do with it what you want. And some people are lazy. That's okay. I'm not going to change anybody's minds. But it's not for lack of trying. Here's some clues.
No, I hear
you go run with it.
You know, let's go back to these additional congressmen that have been added to our roster of lawyers. You know, those names did such a phenomenal, those people did such a phenomenal job during the Mueller testimony that I'm almost wondering if they've been brought in as warriors for that many interviews that you've been talking about.
Now, here's what I think is happened here. And the one name it's not there that I'm kind of curious of why it's not is Devin Nunes. But having said that, there are two people in this list, Jim Jordan, Ratcliffe Meadows, Lesko, Stefanik, Zeldin, Collins. There's two people in there that I probably would put the most pressure on, and that is Ratcliffe and Zeldin. Okay?
Yeah.
And I believe with what, any of them know is they're only there to advise senators on the Republican side and the legal team and all of the other facts that never got brought out in the Schiff-Nadler committees, meaning the Intelligence Committee and the Judiciary. All right? So I do know for a fact that some people out of the Devin Nunes team are already having sessions, probably off campus someplace, with a handful of senators, because let's not forget, the senators were doing senator stuff. They weren't watching the impeachment inquiry 24/7. They had other stuff they were doing as senators. So
correct.
They didn't have access to what the Republicans had on the respective House committees, and they were not up to 100% speed. So it's really a mentoring guidance team that Jordan, Ratcliffe, Meadows, Lesko, Stefanik, Zeldin, and Collins are doing. And I already know that the Devin Nunes' team is already doing that. So it's really let me do a whiteboard, chalkboard presentation for you, kind of like Glenn Beck does for us. I think that's what the team is doing for Trump's legal team.
Well, cool. Well, again, let's go back to a comment that you made about the multiple witnesses. Hey, listen, this has been devastating to the Republic. The last thing I want is continued devastation and damage. But I agree with you 100%. The only way that these people are going to be held accountable is to expose them under oath in front of the entire nation when they're sitting on the hot seat and they got some bad mamma jammas that are interrogating them. And through all that, the Democrats are going to look like complete a-holes as they usually do.
Well, there's three people particularly that are left out of this conversation when it comes to witnesses. And a little bit the whistleblower is in there. But the whistleblower, his connective tissue was to Sean Misko and to Abigail Grace. And those two were hired by Schiff on his team. So it's curious to me why those two names, unless the team, the legal team, the Trump legal team is playing things close to their vest, and they're not going to expose that one. But those two people right there, I think, would spill the goods on all things Schiff. And Schiff doesn't make a move without Pelosi's approval. So, I would say we go back to the whole thing of public trust. Do I go back and tell those people in next door? And I kind of did. Hey, do you have public trust in all things Schiff and Nadler? When he hired the two people that came off the National Security Council and consulted and gave guidance to Eric Sharmella, who filled out the whistleblower complaint form? See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Events and words matter. And I guarantee you, if somebody's watching CBS or ABC or CNN or whatever else, even Fox, they're not hearing those things, which means if they're not hearing them, they don't know to go do some research.
Yeah.
Furthermore, the FBI, by the way, after the $6.5 billion went missing in Ukraine, the FBI, under what is known as MLAT, which is the Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty that we have with Ukraine and many other countries, including, by the way, Russia, that investigation was going on before Trump even entered the White House, and certainly before Joe Biden ever declared his candidacy. So what I'm trying to say is the United States knows already more about the corruption piece through the SWIFT banking system, their dealings with Cyprus, their dealings with some Eastern European countries where that money went, which was why there was such big concern under the Obama administration with Joe Biden, go handle this because we don't want to pay the money. We'll get the International Monetary Fund to give them a stopgap loan. Those are important facts that Trump, as the top law enforcement officer of the land, another argument that I have with the next door people, has a duty, because it's a treaty, it's an agreement. He has a duty to fulfill. So the fact that he was asking a favor wasn't personal. And furthermore, at the time, which happened right about yesterday, Joe Biden was in the lead in the race, in the Democrat race for president, but he was only in the lead by 2 points. Right behind him was Sanders, Warren, and Kamala Harris. So he didn't even know that Biden would be the front runner the entire time. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yep. All right. You got about 4 minutes, 3.5 minutes. Let's dig into Virginia and what happened there and what was accomplished and your takeaway from it.
Well, when you have a Washington, D.C. publication known as Politico that says the pro-gun rally by thousands, and they estimate around 50. I don't know that number is really right. It's probably around 20. Ends peacefully, then I would say that there needs to be a real, again, damning retribution, kind of, if you will, on the CNNs, the MSNBCs, because of the white nationalists, the neo-Nazis, the militias and all these other kinds of things, of all the people are going to be there, and it was going to explode into violence and make the 2017 Charlottesville thing look like it was child's play. Right. So they had, and I was watching this stuff go by me like crazy. This is what it's going to turn out to be. The protesters are this and that, and blah, 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 blah. And it's going to get nasty because Antifa's going to be there. They've rented buses, and now we got snipers on the roof, and we got this, blah, 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 blah. And so, I mean, it had people in such a frenzy that they're panicked now. They're just panicked, such that if one shot had gone off, one, Not even hit anybody, just a shot in the air. Can you about imagine? Okay.
Oh,
And
yeah.
nothing happened. Now the question becomes, what is this governor and the legislature really going to do with these proposed pieces of legislation? The one that's most curious to me, or two, is they're going to shut down the privately owned gun ranges. Can't have them anymore. The second one is, if you want to buy a weapon, you can only buy it one time a month. Yeah. That has nothing to do with, I mean, there's other things like red flag and all these other kinds of things. Now, is that going to change the legislature? Is that going to change anything that's going through the system because we had a very peaceful blah, 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 blah protest? I don't think so. I mean, great that these people showed up. Great that they did, they mobilized. They were neat. They were respectful. It was calm and peaceful and all those kinds of things. Wonderful. But now what?
Will they be ignored?
Yes.
And marginalized?
Yes.
I would say if that happens, you're going to have a rather large number of well-behaved, well-armed patriots that are going to be really pissed off if they get ignored. Because they did it the right way. Did what's his name? Northam?
Mm-hmm.
Did he ever come out from under his desk?
Not that I saw, no.
Okay.
I mean, he comes out and says, our intelligence, our law enforcement are telling us that this is going to be bad, so we have brought in plainclothes, undercovers. We have, tripled the amount of police on the streets. We have, said this, we've done this, we've done this. We got snipers on the road, blah, blah, blah. We got helicopters in the air.
But you know what? We only got 10 seconds. He's going to spin that to where all of what he did being proactive saved the day. He's going to spin it.
Sure,
like
that's
that.
okay. I get that.
Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to the Drive Time SITREP with the unbelievably great Denise Simon and myself, Don Neuen. We appreciate the fact that you've joined us again this week. We hope you have a great week, but it's time for us to go. Denise, you got to take us home.
Thanks for listening. God bless America.
Check us out on the web at cowboylogic.us.